If there is this all-powerful creator and everything was intentionally designed, where would this creator exist? And is there any evidence from the Bible that would speak to a space-time continuum that, I mean, he has to live outside of, if he created everything, he can't live in this world, right?
Right.
So where does he, is there anything in the Bible that would indicate that he doesn't, that he lives outside of some realm?
Yeah, so actually, and like I mentioned, as an engineer, I've always viewed the Bible as the greatest math and physics book ever written. And so modern day quantum physics, what we call quantum physics, it just means the subatomic level below the atom itself. And what modern quantum physics has found is that everything around us in our universe is bound, actually. So what they have found is if you take a piece of rope and you cut it in half and you throw half away, and then you take that half that's left and you cut it in half and throw half away, you would think theoretically you could do that forever. And it would get at some point very, 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 very small, but you could still do it. You could slice half and move it away, slice half, move it away. Well, what quantum physics found is that there comes a point where you get so small that you end up everywhere outside of the universe simultaneously. It's like it goes into a different dimension.
Like the Matrix?
Kind of like the Matrix, but it's not. It's almost like the Ant-Man and Wasp kind of quantum, or Ant-Man Quantum Mania, or, Marvel kind of played on some of this a while back, but a lot of movies actually recently have played on this finding in modern day science of the quantum realm, using quotes. It just means the realm that is beyond our bounds of existence. See, we live within 3.5 dimensions right now, 3 spatial and a half dimension of time. And it's a half dimension of time because you can go forward and look back, but you cannot go backward or look forward. So you can only move in one direction. Whereas in space, like in this 3-dimensional room, we can move forward, backwards, up, down, but all within that 3-dimensional space. Time you can't. So scientists call it a half dimension. So you have these, where our universe is bound by 3.5 dimensions. The quantum realm, or the quantum physics, what they discovered is, okay, when you get down to a certain level, everything, it disappears. That's why they call it the Planck limit, or the Planck. There's a Planck limit in science and physics now of mass and space of an object. There's also a Planck limit of time that they have found. So you can't have time smaller than, it's a very, very, very small number, but it's something times 10 to the negative 44 or something like that. I don't remember offhand, but the matter side, or the item of cutting it in half, it's 10 times 10 to the negative 33rd or something like that. And then it's the Planck limit. And don't quote me on those. I'm just using off the top of my head, but something very small like that. Extremely small, but then it's gone, right? You can't get smaller than that. And so what they've discovered is that the universe around us, everything around us, is built by what you and I would refer to as individual building blocks, or quantum blocks. And so even an atoms are very, very small, but atoms are built up, the nucleus and the electrons and protons and things are built up of these little quantum blocks. It's almost like having a giant bin of 2x2 Lego blocks, and that's all you have to work with. And you use those to build a city. But you can't get smaller than that 2x2 Lego block. Okay. Now, you could build something very elaborate. You could build something magnificent and that's beautiful with it and unique, but you can't get smaller than that building block that's been given to you. That's how God created the universe, is with those building blocks that quantum physics has discovered. And what's amazing to me as an engineer, as a scientist, is that that's exactly what the Bible has said all along in Hebrews 11:3. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. So he, in Genesis 1, right? God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So everything you see around you, you don't really see what it's made out of.
Right.
And in fact, we have our hands on this table right now. The only thing that's stopping your hand from going through this table is electromagnetism. It's not mass, because the atoms are 10 to the 35th times more empty than they are actual matter. So if you took a hydrogen atom, for example, and you blew up the nucleus to the size of a golf ball, the nearest electron or proton spinning around that hydrogen atom, that ratio would be about 7 miles away. So think about...
So we're in Oklahoma City right now.
Yep. It'd be up by the church, for example, for where we're sitting right now. So if you held a golf ball in your hand, imagine another golf ball spinning way up off of the Kilpatrick Turnpike, in Western, around that area.
Right.
That's how
It's
much
a lot of space, a lot of
emptiness
emptiness in there.
is in an atom. That's just a hydrogen atom. So an atom is mostly empty by 10 to the 35th power. It's more empty than it is actual matter. That's a lot of zeros. So what is holding it together? Because then in science, we all growing up, we all had the magnets, right? South and north poles, and you put them together, and you'd watch them repel. And well, in an atom, you've got these like charges, electrons and protons and neutrons spinning around, and you have negative and positive charged particles together. So why aren't they just repelling and just ripping these atoms apart? Because there's a lot of force in that. In fact, it's the greatest source of energy man's ever found, the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Splitting the atom. So with all of that force within the atom, what is holding that together? Because it's mostly empty, and the positive and negative charges are trying to rip it apart constantly. And so what's holding it together? So in 2000, and I think it was around 16 or 17, scientists have been searching for this forever, what holds this atom together. And they didn't know what it was, and so they made up the generic name for it called gluons. They just called it some fake name, gluons. And they were searching for the gluon particle that holds these together. And what they discovered, not knowingly, is they discovered the voice of God. Because what they found that holds every single atom together in the entire universe are sound waves. And when I read that article, I thought, that's exactly what Colossians 1:17 has said forever. That by him all things consist or are held together. In the Greek, it means held together. So by who? By him, Jesus Christ. See, 10 times in Genesis 1, it says, and God said, and God said, and God said, and he put it all together by the word of his mouth. We know when the armies came to arrest him at the Garden of Gethsemane, what did he say? We're searching for Jesus of Nazareth. Well, I am he. And what did his sound do? His words
Knocked him down.
Knocked him down to their face. He could have held them on the ground for the rest of their life, and they couldn't have done anything about it.
Right.
But he let them back up. And we know from Colossians 1:17 that by him all things consist. In quantum physics and in the Greek, that means they're held together. And he holds the atom, the very atom together of the whole universe. And so even his enemies right now, those that hate him, those that are against him, even Satan, it's amazing to think that right now Jesus is holding Satan together by his voice.
Yep, well,
until a day comes that he will cast him in the lake of fire at the end of the millennium. Now he'll still be, he as a being is eternal. He's held together by the voice of God, but he'll be put somewhere in torment for eternity as a result. We know at Armageddon when Jesus comes back, armies that have surrounded Jerusalem.
Hold on. I got to interject here. So you're telling me that Jesus, his voice, is holding the atom together, because the atom should shred itself.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And so in 2000 in Switzerland,
it was in 2015 or 16, somewhere around there.
the electron collider.
Well, they didn't discover this at CERN. This was a different quantum physics discovery. But yes.
Okay. So this is kind of freaky. So you're telling me that when God breathes life into Adam, that's relating to what you're talking about then.
Sure, he breathed the Spirit of the living God in him. But in Genesis, on the third day, well, I say that man was created on the sixth day, but he was planted in the dust of the earth on the third day.
Right.
And it was a prophecy that because Jesus is the last Adam, so that just like Adam was buried in the earth 3 days and 3 nights and would be resurrected after 3 days and 3 nights, so would Jesus. He'd be in the belly of the earth in 3 days and 3 nights, be resurrected. You can read that in Genesis during the 7 days of recreation. But yes, Jesus, when he spoke and everything was created, and when life is conceived, he speaks life into that new human in the womb, the belly of the holy of holy of the mother, right? The womb itself. And he holds, and we know from Psalms and Proverbs, right, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and in the mother's womb, and Jesus, as the master craftsman that he is, putting every human together and putting them together cell by cell, atom by atom, holding them together, shaping them, breathing life into them. And then obviously he has a plan for them on earth. But yes, he's holding literally the atoms together at this table of your phone, your car, you. Think about when you get a cut or a wound, right? And you're bleeding. How does your body know that you're bleeding right there? And it needs to send the right cells to clot, form a scab, and then if you get a deep enough cut, those cells, some of them start to become tissue, muscle, skin, veins. They reconnect. It's all the same cell. So how does your body know? How does your body know?
If there
what
wasn't
cell,
a designer.
if there wasn't a designer, you
Yeah.
wouldn't know.
Yeah.
The fact that you even clot and don't bleed to death whenever you get a cut is a miracle. That is a miracle from God.
Right.
When you look at when a baby is formed in a mother's womb, and it starts out and it's the same cell and it divides into two, same cell, 4, 8, 16, 32, 60, 64, 128. All these cells keep dividing. They're all the exact same cell. And then all of a sudden, a group of them start to form a backbone. A group of them start to form a heart. A group of them start to form rib cages. A group of them start to form eyes and a spinal cord and feet and hands and bones and a jaw and a brain and a skull. See, this is the problem that secular scientists have. They cannot prove scientifically where that information comes from. They have no answer because it's the same cell with the same DNA code.
Yep.
Every DNA is just a code. It's a very complex code. That code, it's the same in every cell. But how do those cells know what to become and when to become that? They can't prove that. But that's one way as a Christian you can prove that Jesus is involved in every cell division in every human that's ever been born and ever been made from the beginning of creation to the end of it. That information comes from Christ. So if you're out there and you're pregnant and your baby's being knit in your womb right now, Jesus is knitting that baby together, piece by piece, cell by cell, continually. And it's amazing.
And every one of those is unique.
Every one of
There
those
is
is unique.
no two that are alike. Every one of those is unique, which is like I can't even fathom that, right? I mean, that's
amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing.
And not only is everyone that's ever been born unique, everyone that will ever be born
is unique.
will be unique.
Yep.
If you had 10 trillion humans on Earth, everyone would be unique. If you had 100 trillion humans on Earth, everyone would be unique.
So
And-
I thought that was fascinating when you told me that. So I'm going to say something that was fascinating to me because I kept thinking again in my science, I've got to prove this, right? So the one thing that I kept pointing to was I thought, well, maybe DNA, maybe everybody has different DNA. And so I thought, what else? Fingerprints. And so I started looking and I thought, what about identical twins? So we know fingerprints are different and most of us have different DNA. However, when you have identical twins, they will have the same DNA. To my surprise, they have different fingerprints.
Yep.
So God tells you, I know you uniquely, different than anybody. I'm to think that some Big Bang thing happened. We came from monkeys, and this is where we're at now. Like
I've always laughed at that because I've thought, okay, if evolution is a thing, and we all started out as knuckle dragging apes somewhere, where are the in between people right now?
Right.
Where's the one that's not quite to our development, but maybe 1,000 years behind us? You know, where's that guy?
Right.
Where's the Neanderthal that is kind of starting to develop, but not quite us, and the one that's a little past him, and a little past him, and a little past him, and they obviously don't exist because evolution is a lie from Satan that got the world very wrapped around the axle to believe this. I mean, if you look at everything in the universe, every creature on Earth, you cannot say any of them are moving toward a better state. None of them.
Yeah.
They either go extinct or they have genetic mutations that hamper them, or something happens, right? And because we live under what Romans would call the bondage of decay, and time is a bondage. Time is actual bondage. Everything bound to time decays, which is why the real you is not bound to time, because the real you will be immortal and never decay.